Hello everyone, Violet here, and today I want to tell you about my crystal routines. So I have a number of crystals, and a lot of them are sort of like in a passive position, where basically I set them in places in my house or around my desk or in my car or in a pocket of my purse as like a specific intention. I set that intention when I set the crystal there, and then I almost like set it and forget it, if that makes sense. I let the subtle energies of the crystal affect that area of my life, whatever it is. And when I look at it, I can use it as a reminder to like connect back into that intention. So those are more so like my passive crystals. And if I have any larger crystals, these are usually like that. They can be very decorative. And then I have a specific set of about 30 crystals. They live in this basket, and these I actively work with. So, I have a routine for every month doing a crystal day. Now, when I was first researching crystals, and I think this is in that book, you know that book that like everyone has, it's like the Crystal Bible, and I think there are at least two volumes of it, maybe more because there are so many crystals. But I think that it was in that book that I read this idea of having a crystal day, and it's essentially a day where you care for your crystals. I always thought, that's such a lovely idea. It's almost like having pet rocks, or I don't know. When I was first like reading up on it, I was like, that is just so sweet. So I've incorporated something like that, and the day that I chose for once a month is on the full moons. So on the full moons, I gather up my crystals, definitely all of these, as well as a lot of the passive crystals, the decorative ones that kind of sit in different areas of my house. Some of them are in places where I just leave them. I let them do their thing. But a lot of the crystals, I gather them all up together, and I first start with cleansing them. So a lot of times this is a smoke cleanse. However, another method that I really like, and you can only do this with crystals that can be in water, is running them under running water. So first I cleanse the crystals of, any energies that they've kind of absorbed or anything. It doesn't cleanse away their pure essence. It doesn't cleanse away like what that crystal stands for and is in its essence, but rather it can cleanse away the energies that might have like gotten attached to it. And then the next step is charging the crystals. So I do this on a full moon because I like to set my crystals out on the windowsill overnight for the full moon, and they charge with the full moon energies. So I do this almost every full moon unless it's like some crazy eclipse energy. And if there's some crazy eclipse energy, I oftentimes don't end up charging my crystals in the moon because it feels like it could be a bit unpredictable, a bit chaotic, and I just kind of feel it out. If I'm like, all right, this is not a moon that I'm actually going to charge my crystals under, then I don't. So that's important to note. And then the next morning, I take away any crystals that can't be in the sunshine, but the rest of them I like to charge in the sun too. So I like for it to have both that, feminine type energy from the moon and that like masculine type energy from the sun. And you can think of these energies in lots of different ways, but I like to have that balance when possible. And I love the sun energy in the crystals. It's just, it like feels so warming. I love picking them up after they've been sitting in the sun. And once again, those are just the ones that can be sitting in the sun, because sometimes the sun can, take away the color of the crystals, or like, depending on the position, if the sun is shining through quartz, it can actually start a fire. So like definitely do some research on that if you're interested. But yeah, so I then, the last part of the charging is setting any intentions once again. So this is more so specific to the crystals that I set in specific parts of my house. I might hold that crystal, I might visualize that intention, I might pour my own intention into it, and think about, I might say aloud what that crystal is there for, and then I set it there. All right, so now let's get into the crystals that I use basically daily. And there's about 30 of these. And what I'll do is I'll choose a crystal, and I might work with it for a specific amount of time. I might work with it until I feel like it's time to move on to another one. I might pick a couple of them, but I really do like focusing on one at a time. And I actually use my crystals in my yoga practice. So what I do is I choose the crystal that makes the most sense, or that I feel drawn to or called to at the time. There have been times that I've gone to a class, I'm like, I don't know why, but I feel called to this crystal. And then I get there and there's a whole theme of that class that exactly perfectly aligns with what that crystal's energy is. And I just love that. So I actually keep my crystal on my mat with me, and the funniest thing that's ever happened is that I have this little carnelian that everyone thought looked like a grape. I had multiple people ask me if I had a grape on my yoga mat, and I was like kind of embarrassed. But other than that, I don't think people really noticed or cared. And some people found it inspiring. I have had yoga teachers, because they're more so looking at everyone and everyone's mat, being like, oh, I love that you use a crystal in your practice. That's really cool. I want to try doing that sometime. But basically, I have my crystal on my mat. So at the very beginning of class, usually, you're seated and you can kind of set your intentions for the class. I usually hold the crystal at that time, and I get attuned with its energies. I set an intention if I have one, or I can just ask the crystal, show me what you want to show me in this practice. And then I set the crystal at the very top of the mat. And this to me has been such a beautiful position for the crystal. Because one, it doesn't really get in the way of practice at all, but there are so many beautiful moments of aligning with the crystal, of, when you might be going down for chaturanga and you can tap your third eye onto the crystal, or perhaps you might be reaching forward like in child's pose and you can reach for the crystal. You might even be able to touch the crystal. And there are different positions where you can use it as a drishti, which is basically like your gazing point in the practice. So there are countless examples for this, but I just love having my crystal at the very top of the mat. And then at the end of class for Shavasana, I don't always do this, but a lot of times I feel called to grab my crystal and go ahead and place it over my heart as I'm laying in Shavasana, which is the final resting pose at the end of yoga class. So that is one of the main beautiful ways that I use my crystals. And then there's an active side, that's the yoga practice, and a more passive side. I also am constantly, daily, cleansing my energy. And I think that part of this comes from being someone who, works reading tarot for people, works within spiritual energies, is that I like to have, if I can, a main point of the day where I cleanse my energies, and that is bath time. So I make these ritual baths, and I make them daily. I mean, that might sound crazy, but I've got a bit of a library of essential oils, and I actually keep a big thing of salt by my bath. And so when I run my bath, I sprinkle just a little bit of salt in there, and I call on my angels to help me cleanse my energy however I need to. And then I put a few droplets of essential oils. Some prime examples that I use a lot are lavender and rosemary. Rosemary is kind of my go-to. It has a lot of meaning for me, and I love putting rosemary in my bath. I also use clary sage sometimes, and I use frankincense sometimes. Anyway, it's important to research oils and make sure you're not using any that would burn your skin. But for the most part, I put it in the running water, so hopefully, even though oil and water don't mix, it kind of gets diluted amongst the bath. Sometimes I use herbs, I use tea packets, and I'll actually hang a tea packet on the spout that puts water through. But that's kind of really special, But another thing that I really like to do is grab a couple. This often isn't just one. I'll grab a few different crystals that I just really want to work with, and once again, make sure they're ones that can be in water. But I put those in the bath with me. So yeah, those are the main ways that I work with crystals, and that's my typical routine for also taking care of them and feeling connected to them. So do let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. I would love to hear how you work with crystals or what your favorite crystal is to work with. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.